On this day, 1993, the most underrated film in Arnold Schwarzenegger's career, Last Action Hero, opens in theaters.
No, it isn't possible.
What's not possible? He's fantastic. This is his best performance ever.
But that was you. You were in that movie. You were in a...
And a hearty welcome to one and all. We're back in the studio for episode 217 of the Confessions of a Not So Dangerous Mind podcast. I'd like to thank you all for spending some of your Tuesday early evening with me here in New York. Once again, we're going to skip past all the promotional jazz, save it for the end, and get right to the guts of the episode. So today marks the 31st anniversary since the release of a movie which was thought to be a long gestating disaster that was an actual disaster upon release, but it's actually a great movie. And that film is John McTiernan's shocking collaboration with his old buddy from Predator, Arnold Schwarzenegger, Last Action Hero. Now, to understand the climate in the still very much pre-internet era, people had email by the spring and summer of 1993. I personally didn't know anybody who had email, but some people had email. Last Action Hero had been buzzed about since the moment Arnold Schwarzenegger agreed to make the movie. This was a film that was going to be, as Arnold famously said for Terminator 2, the biggest movie of the summer. So after the success of Terminator 2, and Arnold's extraordinary run from Predator through Terminator 2, with only the mild box office hit of Red Heat. But Arnold had Predator, The Running Man, Red Heat, Twins, Kindergarten Cop, Total Recall, reverse those, Total Recall, Kindergarten Cop, Terminator 2. There are very few people in Hollywood history who had that many hits and or incredible films, memorable, iconic, legendary films, as the Austrian Oak in that stretch. So after the unbelievable success of Terminator 2, it's better than the first one. And the first one's a classic. Terminator 2 is just extraordinary. Needless to say, everyone in Hollywood wanted to know and was excited, what's he going to do next? Arnold was circling a number of projects. He was circling a project called Crusades, which was going to be directed by Ridley Scott. Kind of became Kingdom of Heaven. It would have been a different film if it had starred Arnold. It would have been more focused on his character, but I'm pretty sure if it wasn't the same script, it was the same general idea of the film that Ridley ended up making with Orlando Bloom. At least I think it was Orlando Bloom, among others. He was circling a project for his old pal, also produced Predator, Joel Silver. Joel later went on to produce The Matrix, called Sergeant Rock, which was based on a comic book that the character of Hawkins in the 1987 film, which I just talked about on the channel, Predator, the character of Hawkins, who was played by Shane Black, who wrote the screenplay for Lethal Weapon, in addition to playing Hawkins in Predator, he's reading the comic Sergeant Rock. So Arnold had loved the idea of Sergeant Rock, of that project. But the screenplays that he kept getting were just not quite there. And the thing with Arnold, he's a perfectionist. He's always been a perfectionist from when he was a young bodybuilder. And if there was a body part that people told him he needed to work on, he didn't just work on it. The bodybuilder version of Kobe Bryant, if he misses a free throw, I'm going to make 50 in a row or I ain't fucking leaving this gym. The Arnold Schwarzenegger version of that was he had to believe that something could not be made better before he was satisfied. He liked the Sergeant Rock scripts, but in his mind, it just wasn't quite there. It needed more. And another project he was circling is one that The Rock ended up doing a number of years later. I'm not sure how many years, but the one where Arnold was going to play the Tooth Fairy. I think it just ended up being called Tooth Fairy. He liked the concept. He felt the script wasn't good enough. Now, there were a lot of jokes that ended up coming out when Last Action Hero somewhat failed, because Arnold was very judicious and cautious in picking projects. So he bypassed an easy box office hit in Tooth Fairy, a probable huge box office hit in Crusades. That was the name of the Ridley Scott project. And a probable huge box office hit in Sergeant Rock, simply because he didn't connect to the material. So as that was going around, somebody gave Arnold a copy of a screenplay that had sold a number of years earlier. The original title of the script was Extremely Violent. Extremely Violent, the screenplay, was a spoof of Hollywood action films. And another thing that people always say about Arnold, whether they love him or hate him or somewhere in the middle, Arnold has always had a sense of humor about himself, about his films, about his career. It doesn't mean that he is not somebody who takes life seriously, challenges seriously. He simply has always been able to poke fun at himself. And having that ability throughout his career, it has helped to endear him to audiences. There's no question about it. So when Arnold read, I don't think he read the original Extremely Violent. I feel like by the time he came on, it was written by two screenwriters, one of whom has had a terrific career, Zach Penn and Adam Leff. Memory says that Shane Black, the same Shane Black that Arnold co-starred with in Predator, had hacked away at a draft of Extremely Violent, which was now retitled Last Action Hero. When Arnold read Zach Penn's, Shane Black's rewrite, he felt connected to the material. He loved it and he wanted to do it. So sometime, I guess it was early 1992, Hollywood starts buzzing. Hollywood Reporter, Liz Smith, People Talking, Premiere Magazine, Film Comment. What are they going to do next? We love John McTiernan, all of this. So Arnold's ready to go. And he asks for one thing. He said, I love this script. And the quote that came back to bite Arnold in the ass when Last Action Hero didn't exactly set the world on fire, he said, this is one of the best scripts I've ever read. Now, to be fair, there are plenty of great screenplays where the movie sucked. It's very difficult to make a good movie out of a shitty script, but you can butcher a good script. It's possible. But Last Action Hero was neither of those things. So what Arnold wanted, for his peace of mind, for his sense of security, and an understanding of, we can make this even better. I love this script, but there's enough room we can do something else. He wanted to enhance the relationship between his character of Jack Slater and the character of Danny Madigan, the nominal lead. The story kind of is filtered through his perception. He's like a 12-year-old boy living in New York City, not far from the cesspool of Times Square. You know, Times Square, everybody complains New York sucks. Now, New York is in so much better shape today than it was before Times Square, before Bryant Park, before all of these different areas were revitalized, renovated, retrofitted. It's just, you can't even imagine, because I remember making deliveries when I worked for my old band, circa 1991, early 92, and I had to make deliveries in Times Square. You took your life into your hands. I'm a 17-year-old kid. There are dope pushers. There are heroin addicts. There are prostitutes asking me where I'm going. Yeah. But the idea was that Arnold, his character of Jack Slater, and this kid interact, and they basically become partners. It's like a buddy film. But he felt that there could be more done to enhance the relationship between Arnold and the kid. Now, that same summer, when In the Line of Fire, with Arnold's old buddy and his idol, Clint Eastwood, the films were in production at roughly the same time, a similar situation arose where everyone connected to In the Line of Fire loved the script. It had been worked on. It had been enhanced. The Kennedy angle is unbelievable, and that's in there. But the powers that be were convinced the relationship between the character that Clint played in that movie of Frank Corrigan and the character Rene Russo played in easily her finest film performance, Lily Raines. There's room to make that relationship better. So the powers that be at Castle Rock, who were responsible for In the Line of Fire, hired Carrie Fisher. They paid her $1 million to focus specifically on every interaction in the script, and only every interaction in the script between Frank Horrigan and Lily Raines. Give us more depth, because this romance, as unlikely as it is, this can really be something. So while that was happening across the lot, the powers that be behind Last Action Hero hired William Goldman, the great William Goldman, an extraordinary novelist and a great screenwriter. All the President's Men, The Right Stuff. He did the Mission Impossible. Marathon Man was him. The Princess Bride was him. Goldman was an incredible writer, and he was very good at writing character and bond between characters. So at Arnold's behest, Arnold himself said, "Get Bill Goldman and let's make a movie." So Bill Goldman, William Goldman, he always went by Bill, he came in and he only worked on, as Carrie Fisher, only worked on very narrow segments of In the Line of Fire. Goldman's job was to take every moment between Arnold Schwarzenegger or as Jack Slater and Austin O'Brien as Danny Madigan and make them sing. So Goldman did the polish. They were ready to go, and they shot the movie. And at that point, when they were putting like teaser trailers out for Last Action, everybody was excited. We all assumed this is just going to be another blowout Arnold Schwarzenegger blockbuster. It's going to make $300-400 million easy, and it's going to be, a great movie. Word began to filter from the set that there were problems, that a lot of people didn't understand what exactly was going on in the story at various points, that there was confusion, and the idea of a movie within a movie, people were just they just weren't getting it. It wasn't landing. And the fact that it was a spoof of action movies of the 80s and the early 90s, while essentially reveling in the same shit that they were supposedly making fun of. Reports were that there were reshoots and the film was in trouble. Now, Arnold didn't say any of that. Arnold was out front always saying, no, we're just trying to give the fans what they want. We're doing the best we can. We've done this on other things. Terminator 2 supposedly was in trouble. Arnold's a guy that knew how to cover all the bases. He was always great at playing the media game. Excuse me. But the film was in trouble. They couldn't figure out exactly how to wrap it up. And there were certain sequences that McTiernan began to think simply didn't work. And what do? So there were substantial reshoots, particularly in the film's, or for the film's final third, final quarter. But they were able to get an enormous amount of celebrity cameos, and that they are great. Every celebrity cameo is dynamite in the film. And so the movie, the biggest problem was, there were two problems. Number one, it came out the week after Jurassic Park. Jurassic Park released June 11th, 1993. And not surprisingly, swallowed up the box office like a T-Rex swallowing a raptor. So even if Last Action Hero had been somewhat akin to Terminator 2, it would have done better. It would have made a greater imprint at first, but it was never going to take the box office from Jurassic. You want to reboot The Matrix and have Terminator 2 instead be the movie that comes out summer 93, and that's Terminator 2 on June 18th? Fine. It would have definitely taken business from Jurassic, but that's not what happened. So Last Action Hero came out. It didn't bomb exactly. The total box office take was 135 plus million, but the film was budgeted at 85, and it cost a lot of money for marketing. So the film worldwide pretty much broke even. So it was not the disaster of, for example, Kevin Costner's Waterworld a couple of years later, which was also not a bad movie. It simply cost too much money. If you have a $200 million worldwide gross and the budget is 50 plus marketing, you've done a good service to your country, soldier. But if the budget is 175 and it pulls in 200 million, it's not the same thing. So Last Action Hero was considered a disappointment at the time. And it did not get good reviews on balance by the critics. If you were to go to Rotten Tomatoes right now, you would see the score is in the 40s. That's not good. I saw Last Action Hero with my dad. We were living in Woodbury at what's now Eagle Rock, Jericho Turnpike, in the kind of Woodbury, Syosset area. We saw it opening night, and the theater was only about 2/3 full. We saw it at the old Cinema 150, what's now the Equinox Gym. It was only about 2/3 full because everybody who went to the movies was going to Jurassic Park. When I saw that the theater there on opening night was 2/3 full, movie's about to bomb. Even without any internet whispers to let me know that, movie's about to bomb. So Dad and I saw it, and I thought it was just okay. I would have given it 2.5 stars out of 4. I left the theater disappointed. And Dad, who was also an Arnold guy, I think Dad actually liked it a little bit more than me. He got the in-jokes. There's a lot of in-jokes that just went over a lot of people's heads. But he liked it a little bit more than me. But we both didn't think it was anywhere near as good as Total Recall, Terminator, Terminator 2, or Twins, which Dad thought he got such a kick out of the movie Twins. And Dad even liked The Running Man better. The Running Man was one of those movies that Dad would watch every time it was on. So the film didn't do as well as was expected. It went to VHS. It started to get a little bit of a following. It goes to Movie Channel, Showtime. But it took a few years. And I remember being in film school and professors, more than one, saying, that's a movie that will be rediscovered. People missed the boat on this, but we guarantee you there is way more going on than this film is given credit for. It is a brilliant movie, and future generations will benefit from our misstep thinking, oh my God, what a disaster. That's pretty much what happened. Because if you go on YouTube now and you check out, for example, movie reactors or people seeing Last Action Hero for the first time, it's had various lengthy runs on Netflix, you will see people saying, this movie's fantastic. What do you mean it didn't do well at the box office? What's with this Rotten Tomatoes score? People just weren't ready for it. It was ahead of its time. It did things that the audiences of 1993 who were waiting for another Terminator 2 didn't get. To a much lesser extent than in 1982, when early audiences who went to see Blade Runner told their friends, this film fucking sucks, because they were expecting what? They were expecting another Harrison Ford film on the order of Raiders of the Lost Ark or Star Wars. And what they got was cerebral science fiction, the likes of which had never been seen before or since. A ton of people who hated Blade Runner 20 years later would say, that's the best science fiction film ever made. Well, Last Action Hero holds its own with Arnold's finest films. So the basic setup, for those of you who haven't seen it, and I figure if you've gotten this far in the episode, you have, but this basic setup is we're through the eyes of a 12-year-old boy named Daniel Madigan, played really well by Austin O'Brien. Didn't go on to have a great career, but in this movie, he's just right. He has the right look, the right face, very expressive face, very important to have the expressive face, the eyes, the smile when he gets angry. But he is obsessed with a fictional movie character called Jack Slater, who is played by Arnold Schwarzenegger. But the name Arnold Schwarzenegger doesn't come up. It's not said early in the film, to my knowledge. There have been 3 Jack Slater films, and I think in the second Jack Slater film, Jack Slater's son, in the world of that movie, he dies. I think he dies the second, and it's a character called the Ripper, played brilliantly by the great Tom Noonan. Man, Tom Noonan, what an awesome character actor. Killed the son. The kid is excited because he has a friend who lives in Times Square, in fucking cesspool of the early 90s. A friend of his named Nick, old guy who runs a movie theater, played by another fantastic character actor, Robert Prosky. Loved him in The Natural as the judge. He has a print of Jack Slater 4, the newest Jack Slater film, that he's going to screen with Danny the night before it opens. And the kid could not be more excited. And then there's a lot of little stuff happens. He gets robbed, the family, the apartment gets robbed. And he gets to the theater and he learns that this character of Nick, the Robert Prosky character, has this ticket that supposedly Houdini had possession of. And Houdini got it from the greatest magician in the world, or some nonsense. And this ticket will transport you to another world. Well, what does that mean? Well, I don't know. I never had the courage to try it, Nick says. So before screening Jack Slater 4, the only two people in the theater. He's got his popcorn, his soda, the kid's ready to go. He's excited. It's midnight, whatever time it is. And Robert Prosky's Nick rips the ticket, and we see some kind of magical shit, but the characters on screen don't take note of it. He goes to watch the movie, and lo and behold, during an early action sequence where there's an explosion, Danny Madigan ends up in the movie right next to Jack Slater, not Arnold Schwarzenegger. And he spends significant chunks of the movie trying to convince Jack Slater that he is simply a character in a movie. He is not living a real life. Hence, a top 10 best scenes of any movie in the decade of the 90s, where as to prove to Jack Slater that you're really Arnold Schwarzenegger, takes him to a video store, a Blockbuster Video, circa 1992. They walk in, and they go to the poster for Terminator 2. But it's not Arnold Schwarzenegger as the Terminator. It's who? It's Arnold's old buddy, Sylvester Stallone. This time it's personal. That was the biggest laugh in the theater. Even people who clearly were not enjoying the film and were already twiddling their thumbs, when we got to the scene where we realized, holy shit, Stallone's the Terminator. I mean, it's multiverse. This is MCU level shit. The multiverse before the multiverse. In the world of this movie, Jack Slater 4, there's no Arnold Schwarzenegger, but there is a Sylvester Stallone. And so Sylvester Stallone is the star of Terminator.
Hey, yo, I need your clothes, your boots, and your motorcycle. I'm coming to get you, Murdoch.
Well, Sly would have been great as the Terminator. Totally different movie, though. So they run afoul of this nasty guy named Benedict, played, again, beautifully by the brilliant character actor Charles Dance. And Anthony Quinn is in the movie as a kind of stereotypical crime boss. And you have Danny DeVito lending his vocal talents to a cartoon cat that's somehow a police officer. The 1950s Humphrey Bogart somehow works for the LAPD in this film. And there are these amazing cameos that tie into Arnold Schwarzenegger's career. There's a moment in the movie where Arnold, it's early in the film, as Jack Slater, Austin O'Brien as Danny, are walking into the unbelievably spiffy and fancy, digitized, computerized Los Angeles Police Department. And as they're about to walk in, Robert Patrick's T-1000 from Terminator 2 walks right past them. The kid can't believe it, but Arnold doesn't know who this is because it's not Arnold, it's Jack Slater. This is just one of our guys. And you turn your head to the left, and there is Arnold's movie wife from Total Recall, Sharon Stone, but it's not Sharon Stone, and it's not the character she played in Total Recall. It's Catherine Trammell from Basic Instinct, lighting a cigarette, wearing the same outfit she wore during Basic Instinct. It's moments like that that make this movie special. Moments like that that play better now. People were shocked. We weren't expecting 50 celebrity cameos. We weren't expecting MC Hammer to confront who he thinks is Arnold Schwarzenegger, and it's actually Jack Slater. Slater 5, soundtrack? The fuck are you talking about? Or whatever he says. The mechanics of plot aren't really that important. What is important is what Arnold had envisioned for this film, which was that ultimately it would be a story about a father who had lost his son, the character of Jack Slater, who had lost his son bonding with an age-appropriate, similar type of kid, and the two of them overcoming enormous obstacles to get to the finish line. And the movie really takes off, and it's funny because when Dad and I saw it that first night, I thought the film went slack when the characters of Jack Slater and Danny Madigan enter the real world. That they're able to use a portal because of the ticket to go back into the actual New York City circa late 1992 and have to catch this dastardly Charles Dance as Benedict in the so-called real world. And there is a moment in this film. There are many great moments, but one extraordinary moment is all Charles Dance. So he's used to the movie world where the bad guys don't win. And now he's in the actual world and he understands things are different here, for real, even though we understand we're still watching a movie. So he's very well dressed. We don't see him, he's not really a fighter, but he's deadly with a gun. And so he walks to a different area of what presumably is Times Square. And he has an idea. Now that we're in the real world, I think the bad guys can win. He goes up to an auto mechanic and shoots him dead. Not in broad daylight, it's nighttime. People have their windows open. There's thousands of people in earshot. He shoots a guy. And he starts screaming, "Hello? I just shot somebody. I did it on purpose." Nothing. You see people walking in the background, ignoring it. They don't give a fuck. "I said, I have murdered a man. I did it on purpose." Somebody in a nearby window goes, "Shut up down there." No sirens, no screams, no nothing. You get away with anything here. Well, almost anything, because we are still in a movie and it is still Arnold Schwarzenegger. But the film climaxes at the New York City Times Square premiere of Jack Slater 4, which means Arnold Schwarzenegger plays Arnold Schwarzenegger in certain points of the film, and Maria Shriver is Maria Shriver. And then you have more incredible celebrity cameos. You get Jean-Claude Van Damme, who never missed this premiere for a second. Jim Belushi, who started with Arnold in Red Heat. Jim Belushi is with his hot young girlfriend. And Jim Belushi says, "I don't really like Arnold, but he turns her on and I just hope to be there when it happens." And then you see Damon Wayans and Chevy Chase. And you see the real Tom Noonan as himself, but you've just seen Tom Noonan as the Ripper, so what the fuck goes on here? So it all builds to this pretty impressive climax during the premiere of Jack Slater 4, where this character called the Ripper does all kinds of horrendous stuff and hijacks, kidnaps Danny Madigan. And Arnold has a bead on the Ripper and might be able to put him down, but he's stopped from shooting the Ripper by who? By Arnold Schwarzenegger. And Arnold Schwarzenegger and Jack Slater, wink, wink, Arnold says, "You know, you're the best celebrity lookalike I've ever seen." And Arnold, as Jack Slater says, "You've caused me nothing but pain. I don't really like you." Because by that point, Jack Slater understands he is a make-believe character. And there's a lot of talk of death and dying in the film world versus the real world. And how in the world of Jack Slater, you still feel pain, physical pain. But there are certain wounds that will kill you in the so-called real world. You'll walk away without a scratch. We have to get him back to the world of Jack Slater 4. It wouldn't be your classic summer movie if the good guys didn't come out on top. But the more I see Last Action Hero, the more I like it. And the more I feel it was unfairly criticized and judged and unfairly maligned. Despite all of the shit blowing up real good, it tells a pretty wholesome story of family, of loss, but also of gaining friends, sometimes under the craziest of circumstances, and rising to the occasion. Because Jack Slater in the real world starts doubting, I'm just a cop now. I'm not like a super cop. And if I simply fire a gun at a taxi driver with a bad guy, the taxi's not going to explode as it does in the world of the movies. I am glad that those professors at New York University, because I certainly didn't think they knew what they were saying, but I'm glad that they were right. I am glad that history caught up to Last Action Hero, that people discovering it for the first time are loving it, are saying, "Hey, this is at least as good as Terminator. This is better than The Running Man." What a great movie. It's funny, the action sequences are amazing, and it does have a lot of laughs at the ridiculousness of 80s action and early 90s action movies. This is a movie where my thoughts have completely morphed. From 2.5 stars out of 4, now I would put it at least 8 or 9 out of 10. It seems touched with genius, and at the time, it simply seemed like a disappointment. Time sometimes does a number on movies and TV where they're products of their time. and they no longer work. Well, Last Action Hero was a product ahead of its time, and now it's timeless. Last Action Hero, released on this day, June 18th, 1993, directed by John McTiernan, starring Arnold Schwarzenegger, Austin O'Brien, Mercedes Ruehl, Frank McRae, F. Murray Abraham, Danny DeVito, Charles Dance, Anthony Quinn, and in smaller roles, in cameos, the names I mentioned, and many, many more. It's a great movie. As of right now, it's only streaming on the Pluto app for free. If you want to see it on Amazon Prime, it'll cost you a couple of bucks. As I said, it had been on Netflix for a long time. And then I think it was briefly on Max. I'm not sure about that. But it is free on Pluto. And maybe you'll find it on some other streamer. Or maybe you'll just find it on TV. It's such a quaint thing now to talk about, well, I'll just watch it when it's on. But Last Action Hero is a great film. And I highly recommend checking it out if you've never seen it. And if you have, it's going to play better for you than it ever did. This has been episode 217 of the Confessions of a Not So Dangerous Mind podcast. I'd like to thank you all for spending some of your Tuesday evening with me here in New York. And if you check out this episode on the YouTube channel, haven't done so already, please click like, subscribe, comment, share, turn on those notifications. Or if you caught this episode on the audio platforms such as Spotify or iTunes, same general rule applies. Click like, subscribe, share, and turn on those notifications. I'll be back with episode 280.